Today's video is maybe not for my short friends who I know sometimes enjoy watching my videos. So maybe just preview or watch with, or maybe just don't show to your little friends, because not everything we discuss is for them, right? Right. Today's video will ruffle feathers. And I know this because every time that I mention the word privilege here or on Instagram, people lose their minds. So let's discuss privilege today, okay? Okay. Welcome back to Making Everyday Magic. My name is Shauna. If you are new here, we are a homeschooling family of 4. We are in our 8th year of homeschooling, getting prepared for our 9th year of homeschooling. And I like to think of myself as socially progressive. And I feel like I was recently, I'll get to it, but I was recently inspired to have this conversation again because it continues to come up. So let's discuss, is it a privilege? Before we go any further, guys, please scroll down, hit the big red subscribe button, turn on the bell for notifications, and feel free to hit the thumbs up or the thumbs down because it'll probably be one of them. While you're down there, you can find me in the comments or over on Instagram. You want to chat? Feel like I need to hear any more of what you got to say. And yeah, so I know, as I stated, that this is going to offend people. And I know that because every time I mention it, it offends people. Recently, having a real life in-person conversation with a loved one of a previous generation, the topic of privilege came up in respect to, and it genuinely blows my mind. The topic of privilege came up in a discussion in relation to vacations and family travels. This person, and let's circle back. Privilege. For me, in my brain, privilege is literally anything that provides you an advantage or provides you something that is above the just absolute minimum. So my definition of privilege is, and I know that people are going to take offense to this, but I genuinely believe that it is one of the things that allows me to be a positive person in situations that are less than positive. And I know that it's based in my background and the baggage I bring to the table and all of the things, but my perception of a privilege is not just having the food to eat, it is having the food you want to eat. So like SpaghettiOs. It is certainly being able to decide that we're just going to pick up dinner instead of going home. It is having character-themed sheets instead of plain sheets. It is having the flavor of toothpaste that you prefer. It is such a bare bones thought for myself. This is my definition of privilege. For me, it is not hard for me to recognize where I am privileged because, again, everything above that absolute need baseline to me is a privilege. When we discuss privilege kind of in current hot topic issues where it comes to race and gender and things like that, it is not hard for me to understand that I am privileged. And I am privileged because I am white. I am privileged based on the area we live, the person that I have married, the way I have been raised. It is not hard for me to understand that those things have provided me an advantage. And even if they didn't provide me an advantage, I can recognize that my privilege comes not from being given a leg up, but from not having the legs swept out from under me for various things that, again, are beyond my control. And I'm not saying that privileges are earned. And I do believe that some are inherent. And it is inherent for me because I am white. But I believe that there are privileges that people don't recognize or discuss enough that also come to the game, come to the table, and play a part. I'm a huge believer in pretty privilege. I believe that well-dressed people are treated better. I believe that visually looking people are treated better. I genuinely believe that pretty privilege plays a role in life. Now, I know, again, people are going to come at me with the pitchforks and they're going to be mad and they're not going to like what I have to say about these things. But this is my channel and it's my perception of the world. I know that I am privileged to, like I said, live where I live the life that I live, regardless of the fact that it did take work to get here. I'm not saying that a privilege means the absence of work. I'm not saying that the privilege means the absence of effort on your part. I am not saying that privilege means you have never tackled a hurdle. What I am saying is that some of the things that are taken for granted are in fact a privilege. And what I am saying is that some of the things that people don't recognize is that the absence of obstacles along the way is a privilege. And I'm not saying you have the privilege to not work hard. I'm not saying you have the privilege to not cut corners when needed or things like that. And that's going to circle back in a minute when we talk about if homeschool is a privilege. But I'm just trying to lay the general groundwork here for where I'm starting from with my perception of my thoughts. Take it, leave it. It is of no consequence to me. It's how I feel, and it's not going to change. And if you do not know this about me, it really made me super mad when my husband, very well-read guy, works in a bookstore, very well-read. And he was telling me what, I don't remember what kind of profile it is, but what my personality profile was. And I don't remember what it was, but I just remember that he pegged all 4 of the letters for it. I don't even remember what the term was. If I remember, I'll ask him and I'll put it here so you can reference it. But he pegged all 4 of those letters, and I've never been more offended in my life. So then I start looking up what attributes those are and just don't do it. I was not necessarily offended, but I am most likely to be a cult leader. I know. But one of the personality types is righteous and justice focused. And I am 100%, that is absolutely how I feel. So you're not changing my opinions here. This is steadfast. I firmly believe it. And it has a big impact on, I think, who I am and how life goes for me. So you're not changing my opinion. There's no sense in arguing. Feel free to offer a different viewpoint, but I'm not going to fight with you. That's not a thing I'm going to do. So anyways, circle back to the beginning. Having a conversation, dear loved one, different generation, who somehow over the course of our conversation, it came out that they thought that vacations and family travels were not a privilege, that people simply choose to not do them. They just choose to not structure their lives in a way that they just don't prioritize it. So that's why it's not happening. It's not because it's a privilege. And this stemmed from the fact that this person feels like they grew up with not a lot of extra and their parents always made it happen. And then they didn't ever feel like they had a lot of extra with their children and they always made it happen. So therefore everybody can, and they're just choosing not to. And I'm still so incredibly impacted by this conversation, genuine shock, because that's not my reality. That wasn't my reality. It blew my mind that the inability to wrap their brain around the fact that some people just don't have the choice. There is not extra at tax time, or there is not extra in between to make that decision, because that decision has to be spent on food or housing or heat or clothing or existence or medication. And it truly just, my brain exploded out of my head. And I was like, you know what? We've had this conversation recently and we definitely need to have it again as it pertains to homeschool. So every time that I say homeschooling is a privilege, 100% believe that being able to homeschool is a privilege. Why do I feel this way? Well, first of all, everybody always rakes me over the coals because a lot of people believe that homeschooling is not a privilege because they have to make sacrifices to make it happen. That is not the case. So when I say I believe homeschooling is a privilege, 100%, I stand behind that fact. Homeschooling is a privilege. And there will be people who tell me that it is not a privilege because they had to sacrifice an income, so therefore it's not a privilege. If you had to make sacrifices to homeschool and you had places where you could make sacrifices to homeschool. Now, don't get me wrong. This may dip you into a paycheck to paycheck situation. This may mean that you do not have luxuries or family vacations or things that you once had. This may mean that someone is sacrificing their career, paths, goals, progress, whatever, in an effort to homeschool. And it may even be that you don't feel like you have a choice based on your learner's needs except to homeschool. It is still a privilege. And it is a privilege because you have areas of your life that you can radically change to provide your children the best education that you can. You have areas of your life where you can snip those corners and you still have a place to homeschool. You have areas of your life where you can make those decisions and the people in your home are still going to eat. Now, here's the caveat to that. If you are choosing to homeschool and the choice to homeschool means that you are housing insecure or food insecure, I'm going to say it, and people are going to be mad at me. Do not homeschool. I mean this with all of the love and the care in the world. If you are meeting your family's needs of needing to homeschool, but you are sacrificing your family's needs of a place to live or food to eat, guys, this is not a fair trade. I'm so sorry. I would rather your children were clothed and housed than had a tailor-made education for them. And I know, I'm sorry. Especially if you are so close to the brink that you are food insecure. If you send them to school, at least currently, Lord knows how in the next 6 months to a year, currently, if you send them to school, they will at least, in all likelihood, if you are that close to the poverty line, get food. 2 meals a day. I recognize that this voice comes from a place of privilege, but I have not always had the privilege of making these decisions. It is important to me, in the homeschool world especially, that we do treat this as a privilege for a couple of reasons. One, I want my children to know that what we're providing them, it is a privilege. It is a privilege. It is not mandatory that we do this for them. It is not something that is afforded to many, that it does provide them an advantage in life, because I firmly believe that. And it is a privilege. It is a privilege to get to choose an expensive Lego set to study science. It's a privilege. It is a privilege to get to spend this time together as a family. It is a privilege to not get up and have to go to school. It is a privilege to not have homework. These are privileges that are not extended to so many kids in the world. And I want them to recognize and appreciate that, especially as they're approaching, one, their adult lives, but two, their education. I want them to look at it with a sense of a grateful heart, with appreciation, with a fact that their parents are in a place that is privileged enough to allow them to have these choices and these opportunities, because it is a privilege, okay? I also do not want to, and I had this conversation a little bit with someone recently, present to my children that we've chosen this path. We've chosen this educational path for them. And I never want them to look at that as something that they have to shoulder the burden. So if I am constantly talking about how we are suffering, right? If we're food insecure, if we're housing insecure, in an effort to homeschool my children, who do you think is going to carry that burden? Who do you think is going to carry the burden of that going forward in life? It's going to be your kids. If your kids are worrying about what you spend on homeschool, and I'm not talking about letting them know it was an expensive piece and they need to treat it well, all for that, all for that. But if they are shouldering the burden of that balance between poverty and non-poverty, because of your decision to homeschool them, that's a weight that I don't think that you intend to put on them, but will sit with them for the rest of their lives. I hope that by articulating in this video what I have or what my heart's intent is, and I hope that it came across clearly, because I'm not always the best at that. My brain works really fast and it's hard for me sometimes to convey my message clearly. I hope that those of you who maybe are really quick to snap back that it's not a privilege, not a privilege, not a privilege, can hear me deep down on the inside and maybe shift that focus for you. Because not only is this a burden on your children, or has the potential to be a burden on your children if you're not looking at homeschooling as a privilege, I want you to think about the burden that places on your parenthood, motherhood most likely, because that's usually who's doing this. I want you to think about the weight that that puts on your shoulders if you feel like homeschool is something you have to do instead of something that you get to do. For me, I know it's a privilege. It is a privilege for me that I get to tailor this to my children. It is a privilege to me that I get to spend this time with my children. I know that this is a privilege. I get to spend this time with my children, and that's a privilege. I get to do this for my family in this season of life, and that is a privilege. I want to remind you, as mothers, as the default parent, as people who often are perceived and share that they do struggle with and as mothers, that when you don't view some of these simple joys as a privilege, if they're not a privilege, then what are they? If homeschooling your children isn't a privilege to them, what kind of education are you offering them that it's not a privilege? If homeschooling your children is not a privilege to you, it's not a privilege, is it a punishment? Do you not like what you're doing? If your homeschooling isn't serving everyone in your family, including you, why are you doing it? If you are choosing this for your life without thinking that is a privilege or a good for everyone involved, what are you doing? Honestly, what are you doing? So yes, I have a really bold take on privilege. I do. But I'm not ashamed to admit when I am privileged, when the things that I do are a privilege. And let me tell you, the fact that I can work for myself, privilege. The fact that I can work from home, privilege. The fact that we can homeschool, privilege. Privilege, 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 privilege. It doesn't mean it's not hard. It doesn't mean that it's easy. And it doesn't mean we haven't made sacrifices to get here. But I had the space to make the sacrifices. I had the space, the capacity to make the choice. The choice is a privilege. It just is. In so many things. Having the choice is a privilege. I don't have to worry if my kids are going to go hungry by choosing this. I don't think we're going to lose the roof over our heads. Okay? I have the space and I have the privilege. There are probably millions of mothers out there who would love to do this, who are single mothers, who are primary breadwinners, the only ones who are making sure that they keep one foot out of the poorhouse. It is not a privilege afforded to many, and when we don't acknowledge our privilege, we truly, truly are damaging those who don't have it. We just are. And that comes back to everything, guys. It genuinely comes back to everything. So it is what it is. Everybody's going to view this as a political post. I don't think that it is. I just genuinely want you to stop and to think. Okay? If you are happily touting that homeschool is not a privilege for you, then what is it? What is it? Don't come at me with, well, we had it hard and therefore it's not a privilege. Bull hooey. Lots of people have it hard. It's still a privilege. Guys, I hope that you found this helpful, entertaining, or informative. If you did, please scroll down, hit the big red subscribe button, turn on that bell for notifications, and give this video a thumbs up. As always, you can find me right on down in the comments, where I'm sure many of you are headed right now, or over on Instagram at Making Everyday Magic. So yeah, let's start this conversation. I'm ready. I don't have anything better to do. And again, you're not going to change my mind. It's a privilege. Bye, guys.